Every year, $500 million in boat engines are destroyed. Not by storms, not by crashes, by something you pump into your tank without a second thought. The gas station you trust? It might be selling fuel that eats your engine from the inside out. Fuel that corrodes metal. Fuel that turns to sludge. Fuel that no manufacturer will ever cover under warranty. And here's what makes it worse. Most boaters have no idea they're doing it. We spent 4 months investigating fuel quality across America. We talked to mechanics who've seen brand new outboards destroyed in a single season. We found pumps that lie, stations that cut corners, and 12 types of gasoline that should never go near your boat. But we also found the fuels that mechanics actually trust, the ones that protect your engine instead of killing it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to avoid, where to fill up, and how to make sure the next tank you buy isn't the one that costs you thousands. For decades, filling up a boat was simple. You pulled up to the pump, chose your octane, and trusted that what came out of the nozzle was safe. That trust wasn't misplaced. It was inherited. Generations of boaters learned from their fathers and grandfathers that gasoline was gasoline. If it worked in your truck, it worked in your outboard. If the government approved it, it was fine. And for a long time, that assumption held true. But the fuel system that serves American vehicles today was never designed with boats in mind. The Environmental Protection Agency regulates gasoline for one purpose: reducing tailpipe emissions in automobiles. Their testing protocols measure how fuel performs in car engines under normal driving conditions. Engines that burn through a tank in a matter of days. Engines that run hot and consistent. Engines that rarely sit idle for weeks at a time. Marine engines live in a different world. They operate under heavy loads, often at wide open throttle. They're surrounded by moisture, salt, and heat. And perhaps most critically, they sit. A recreational boater might fill the tank in June and not run the engine again until August. That fuel doesn't just wait patiently. It begins to change. What the EPA tests for and what a boat engine actually experiences are two very different realities, and that gap would soon become a crisis. The turning point came in 2005 when Congress passed the Energy Policy Act. The legislation was designed to reduce America's dependence on foreign oil by mandating the use of renewable fuels, primarily corn-based ethanol. Refiners were required to blend billions of gallons of ethanol into the national fuel supply. By 2010, E10, gasoline containing up to 10% ethanol, had become the de facto standard at nearly every pump in the country. The promise was appealing. Ethanol was domestic, it was renewable, and according to the fuel industry, it was perfectly compatible with existing engines. Marketing campaigns assured consumers that E10 was safe, clean, and even beneficial, helping engines run cooler and reducing harmful emissions. What those campaigns didn't mention was that ethanol behaves very differently in a marine environment. Ethanol is hydrophilic. It attracts and absorbs water from the air. In a car that burns through fuel quickly, this is rarely a problem. But in a boat fuel tank, especially one that breathes through a vent exposed to humid, salty air, ethanol begins pulling moisture into the fuel within days. When the water content reaches just half of 1%, something called phase separation occurs. The ethanol and water bond together and sink to the bottom of the tank, forming a corrosive layer that sits directly at the fuel pickup. The next time you start your engine, that mixture gets sucked straight into your fuel system. The effects are devastating. Aluminum carburetors corrode. Rubber fuel lines swell and crack. Fuel injectors clog with residue that ethanol strips from the inside of older tanks, and none of it happens immediately. The damage accumulates silently over weeks and months until the engine fails. By 2011, the EPA approved an even stronger blend, E15, containing 15% ethanol. It was authorized for use in cars and light trucks manufactured after 2001, but buried in the fine print was a critical restriction. E15 was explicitly not approved for use in marine engines, motorcycles, lawnmowers, or any small engine application. The National Marine Manufacturers Association saw the warning signs almost immediately. Within 2 years of E10 becoming widespread, their member companies reported a 250% increase in fuel-related warranty claims. Fuel pumps were failing, injectors were corroding, entire fuel systems were being replaced on engines that were barely a year old. The industry had made a promise, and that promise was already breaking. The damage didn't announce itself. It crept in quietly, one tank at a time, across thousands of boats from Maine to California. And by the time most owners noticed something was wrong, the harm was already done. To understand which fuels are destroying marine engines, you have to understand that not all gasoline is created equal, and not all ethanol blends are labeled honestly. The first and most dangerous offender is E15. Despite clear federal restrictions prohibiting its use in marine engines, E15 is now available at more than 2,000 stations across the United States. The pumps are often positioned right next to E10, with buttons that look nearly identical. One wrong selection, one moment of distraction, and you've just pumped a fuel into your boat that no manufacturer will warranty. E15 attacks aluminum components, degrades rubber seals, and runs hotter than marine fuel systems are designed to handle. A single tank can cause damage that takes months to reveal itself. The second threat is E85, sometimes called flex fuel. This blend contains anywhere from 51 to 83% ethanol. It's intended exclusively for specially designed flex fuel vehicles, and it is catastrophic for marine engines. E85 will destroy fuel pumps, injectors, and internal seals within hours of operation. The danger is particularly high at multi-purpose stations, where flex fuel shares a pump handle with regular gasoline. The residual E85 left in the hose from the previous customer can be enough to contaminate your tank. But even if you're careful to select E10, you may not be getting what the label promises. Independent testing conducted by the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute found that more than 7% of fuel samples taken from retail stations exceeded their labeled ethanol content. Some tested as high as E12 or E14. These unbranded or loosely regulated stations blend fuel inconsistently, and there is no practical enforcement mechanism to stop them. You trust the label because you have no other choice. But the label doesn't always tell the truth. The fourth ethanol-related danger isn't about the blend itself. It's about what happens after the fuel sits in your tank. Phase-separated fuel occurs when ethanol absorbs enough moisture to break its bond with gasoline. The ethanol water mixture sinks to the bottom of the tank, where it pools directly at the fuel pickup. When you start your engine, that corrosive slurry is the first thing it drinks. The result can range from a rough idle to a completely hydrolocked cylinder, and the repair bills start in the thousands. Beyond ethanol, the source of your fuel matters just as much as its composition. Fuel from low-traffic stations is one of the most overlooked risks. Gasoline has a shelf life. Within 30 to 60 days of leaving the refinery, it begins to degrade. Octane levels drop. Varnish-like deposits form. At a busy station near a major highway, fuel turns over quickly and stays fresh. But at a rural station or an off-season marina pump, that fuel may have been sitting in an underground tank for months. You're not buying gasoline, you're buying a chemistry experiment. Aging infrastructure makes the problem worse. Underground storage tanks more than 25 years old are prone to water infiltration, sediment buildup, and microbial contamination. There is no federal mandate requiring these tanks to be replaced, and state enforcement is inconsistent at best. The fuel may look fine coming out of the nozzle, but what's dissolved inside it can destroy an engine from within. And for boaters trying to save a few dollars per gallon, the cheapest station in town often carries the highest hidden cost. Not all fuel stations are held to the same standard, and the difference between a trusted source and a risky one often comes down to a certification most boaters have never heard of. Top Tier is an independent fuel quality program established by major automakers and endorsed by marine engine manufacturers. Stations that carry the Top Tier designation are required to use a higher concentration of detergent additives, chemicals that prevent carbon deposits from forming inside your engine. Stations without this certification use the EPA's minimum detergent requirements, which are significantly lower. The difference is measurable. In a study conducted by AAA, engines running on non-top tier fuel developed 19 times more carbon deposits than those using certified fuel over the same mileage. For marine engines operating under heavy loads, the consequences are even more pronounced. Clogged injectors, fouled spark plugs, and a gradual loss of performance that owners often blame on age rather than fuel. Coastal stations present another hidden danger. In humid, salt-heavy environments, underground tanks are constantly exposed to moisture in the air. Condensation forms inside the tank walls and drips into the fuel below. One marine surveyor working along the Florida coast reported that 40% of fuel samples he tested from local stations contained detectable levels of water. The contamination wasn't visible at the pump. It only revealed itself when engines started misfiring. But not all fuel problems begin at the station. Many begin in your own garage. Gasoline stored for more than 30 days without a stabilizer begins to break down. The lighter compounds evaporate first, leaving behind a heavier, less combustible mixture. The fuel becomes stale. Engines running on degraded gasoline experience hard starts, rough idling, and accelerated wear on internal components. Seasonal boaters who fill their tanks in spring and don't return until late summer are especially vulnerable. The containers you use matter as well. Standard red plastic gas cans sold at hardware stores are not designed for marine use. Over time, they can leach plasticizers into the fuel. Exposure to sunlight accelerates the breakdown. Only EPA-compliant, marine-rated containers should ever be used to transport or store fuel for your boat. Even your boat's own fuel tank can become a source of contamination. Tanks that vent improperly allow humid air to enter and condense on internal surfaces. Over weeks and months, that moisture promotes rust in steel tanks and microbial growth in all tank types. What started as clean fuel slowly becomes something else entirely. And finally, there's the fuel you should never trust at all: gray market gasoline of unknown origin. Some independent distributors purchase surplus fuel from refineries, blend it themselves, and resell it without disclosure. The ethanol content is unknown. The detergent package is unknown. The age and storage conditions are unknown. These fuels often appear at the cheapest stations in town, and they carry the highest risk of all. Now consider what happens when these fuels reach your engine. The first sign is often subtle: a hesitation at startup, a slight roughness at idle. Most owners ignore it. Then comes the loss of power at cruising speed, the occasional misfire, the unexplained stall in open water. By the time the engine refuses to start, the damage is done. Corroded fuel pumps cost $800 to $2,500 to replace. Carburetor rebuilds run $400 to $1,200. A full fuel system overhaul, injectors, lines, pumps, and tank cleaning can exceed $6,000. And if water reaches the combustion chamber, the result is a hydrolocked engine, bent rods, scored cylinders, a repair bill that often totals the boat. The average fuel-related claim filed with Boat US in 2023 was $2,340. Most of those claims were denied. When engines fail and warranties are denied, boaters often ask the same question: how is this legal? How can fuel that destroys marine engines be sold at the same pumps where boat owners fill their tanks? The answer lies in a regulatory gap that no single agency has the power or the mandate to close. The Environmental Protection Agency regulates fuel composition, but their authority is limited to emission standards for automobiles. They dictate how much ethanol refiners must blend and what additives are required for air quality compliance. They do not test fuel for marine compatibility. They do not monitor how gasoline performs in high humidity environments, and they do not enforce the labeling restrictions that are supposed to keep E15 out of boat tanks. The United States Coast Guard oversees marine safety, but their jurisdiction covers the vessel itself, not the fuel that goes into it. They regulate how fuel is stored on board, how it's vented, and how fires are prevented. But they have no authority over what happens at the pump before that fuel ever reaches your boat. The result is a protection gap. No federal agency is specifically tasked with ensuring that the gasoline sold to American boaters is safe for marine engines. The industry polices itself, and the consequences fall on the consumer. The economics of ethanol make reform even more difficult. Corn-based ethanol is heavily subsidized by the federal government. Blending it into gasoline is profitable for refiners, and selling higher ethanol blends like E15 is often more profitable for retailers than selling E10. The incentives point in one direction: more ethanol, not less. Enforcement of existing restrictions is almost non-existent. The EPA requires E15 pumps to display warning labels, but the labels are small, and the fines for mislabeling are rarely imposed. Station owners face little consequence for selling prohibited fuel to prohibited vehicles. And boaters, who often fuel up in a hurry, may never notice the difference until the damage is done. So what can you do? In a system that wasn't designed to protect you, the responsibility falls on you to protect yourself. The first step is knowing which fuels to trust. Ethanol-free recreational fuel, often sold as RX90 or clear gas, contains zero ethanol and eliminates the risk of phase separation entirely. It's available at dedicated marine stations and select retailers across the country. Websites like puregas.org maintain a searchable database of stations that carry it. For serious boaters, this fuel is worth seeking out. Valvetect Marine Fuel is specifically formulated for marine engines. It includes stabilizers, corrosion inhibitors, and ethanol treatment additives. It's distributed through a network of certified marinas and is one of the few fuels designed from the ground up for the demands of life on the water. Among national brands, Shell V-Power Nitro Plus offers ethanol-free options in select markets, combined with a top-tier certified detergent package. Chevron with Techron and Exxon Mobil Synergy are also top-tier certified, with strong quality control standards and additive packages that reduce carbon buildup and protect fuel system components. But perhaps the most reliable source of all is also the simplest: a high turnover, branded, top-tier station located near a major waterway. Fuel moves quickly through these stations, ensuring freshness. The customer base includes commercial fishermen and experienced boaters who would notice and report fuel quality issues immediately. These stations have reputations to protect. When in doubt, ask the locals. Find out where the charter captains fill up. Learn where the fishing guides go. The people who depend on their engines for their livelihood don't gamble on fuel. Follow their lead. Good fuel isn't a luxury. It's the least expensive form of engine insurance you'll ever buy. The marine industry is not standing still. Engineers at Yamaha, Mercury, Honda, and Suzuki have spent the last decade quietly redesigning fuel systems to survive the ethanol era. New alloys resist corrosion. Improved seals tolerate higher ethanol concentrations. Advanced fuel injection systems compensate for inconsistent fuel quality. The engines leaving factories today are more resilient than anything built 20 years ago. But no amount of engineering can overcome truly bad fuel. Manufacturers can design around the problem. They cannot eliminate it. And until regulators close the gaps in oversight, until E15 pumps are clearly separated from marine-safe fuel, until fuel quality is tested at the point of sale, until honest labeling becomes enforceable law, the burden of protection will remain where it has always been, on you. The good news is that protection is not complicated. It requires awareness, not expertise, discipline, not expense. Start at the pump. Before you squeeze the handle, read the label. Look for the ethanol content. Look for the top-tier certification. If you're at an unfamiliar station, take an extra 10 seconds to confirm what you're buying. One wrong button can cost you thousands. Use a fuel stabilizer for any gasoline that will sit in your tank for more than 2 weeks. Products like Startron and mislabeled Marine are formulated specifically for ethanol blends. They slow oxidation, prevent phase separation, and keep fuel combustible for months instead of weeks. A small bottle costs less than $10. A single use can prevent a repair bill that exceeds your monthly boat payment. Install a fuel-water separator if your boat doesn't already have one. These filters catch water and sediment before they reach your engine. They're inexpensive, easy to maintain, and they provide a visible early warning system. When you see water in the bowl, you know your fuel source has a problem, before your engine does. Know your local stations. Build a relationship with a marina that tests their fuel and takes quality seriously. Ask questions. Find out how often their tanks are inspected, how quickly their fuel turns over, and whether they carry ethanol-free options. The few extra cents per gallon are not a cost. They're an investment in reliability. And document everything. Keep a log of where you fuel up and when. Save your receipts. If a warranty claim ever arises, you'll need to prove that you did everything right. In a dispute between a boater and a manufacturer, documentation is your only leverage. The marine industry has always been built on trust. Trust in the craftsmanship of the hull, the reliability of the engine, the safety of the systems that carry us across open water. That trust extends to the fuel we burn. For generations, it was earned. Today, it must be verified. The fuel industry will not protect you. Their incentives point elsewhere. The regulators cannot see you. Their authority ends at the tailpipe of an automobile. But you are not powerless. You have information now that most boaters never receive. You know which fuels to avoid. You know which sources to trust. You understand the forces, economic, political, chemical, that shaped this crisis. And you know that the choice, ultimately, is yours. There's a reason we go out on the water. It's not about horsepower or hull speed. It's about freedom. The freedom to leave the dock behind, to feel the wind and the spray, to trust that the machine beneath you will bring you home safe. That trust begins with what you put in the tank. The most important maintenance you will ever perform isn't under the cowling. It's at the pump. And now, you know exactly what to look for.